My name is John Chapman. I'm just an ordinary chap, and I was born in Plesley in 1924. It was a long time ago. I always thought that stories began once upon a time. At my age, it does all seem a long time ago. Sometime in the future, someone is going to ask, I wonder what my great-grandfather, uncle, cousin, or whatever was like. What did he do? How did he live all those years ago? The idea mainly is to give present-day people an idea of how people lived and what they did and life in general. Dad used to, he was always there. He used to go to work in the mornings at the Plesley Vale Mills. He was a grinder at the mills, and this meant it was working on the combing machines that combed the rough fleeces into workable condition and such like. And he'd come home and used to read me stories, and he'd I remember when I went to bed, the gas light in the bungalow used to throw light onto my bedroom wall, and he'd leave the door open and he'd make shadow pictures for me of rabbits and ducks and all that kind of thing. This was when I was smaller, of course. As I grew up, he didn't do it. But later, as I grew up, he used to take me down to Plesley Vale Mills and into the swimming pool. They had a swimming pool there in those days. It's gone now. And he used to take me down there, and he used to wheel me down on the bike, sit me on the seat, and he'd push me along and let me steer it. He was quite good. And Mum, she was always there, of course. Any problems I had, if I fell down and scratched myself, she was always there to bandage it up. She was always there with my meals and looked after me, cared for me. A lovely relationship. When we were going to school and coming back from school, one of us would take a tie, a scarf, and we used to get this. Two of us used to get this scarf and twist it, and then bring both ends together, and it used to make a kind of a really hard missile, if you like, or whatever. And we used to chase each other with this, and of course hit each other with it. That was one of our favourite things. As we were going to school, we'd be running along, and we'd be running toward the school and chasing each other with this. And another thing would be, we used to call it tiggy. We're touching each other, and whoever touched you, you were on, and you had to chase at them and touch them, sort of thing. Simple little things like that. I think they'd laugh at us today if with all the computerized stuff that they've got. But nevertheless, that used to satisfy us. We were happy. There was much more discipline. You sat at your desk and you didn't move. If the teacher said, put your hands on your heads, you put your hands on your heads, and you did as you were told. There was no saying no to a teacher. The teacher was, well, to put it in a nutshell, teacher was God. Well, the first computer, as I knew it at the time, it was just a tin base with sliding knobs on it, and numbers all down the sides, and you just slid them up or down, whichever you wanted to add or take away or multiply or divide, and that was a computer in my day. I didn't. We didn't know anything about the computers as we know them today. We had to do it in our heads mainly if we wanted to. We'd walk in the shop, and even in the shops at that time, all the adding up of the items that you'd bought was done in the head, and they just charge you whatever they worked it out to. And if you weren't bright enough to work it out in your own head, they could quite easily add a little bit on. Yeah, they went at 78 revolutions per minute when you put the needle on them, and they no doubt people have seen these in museums and in various places on TV and that. They've seen these gramophones that we had. I remember Grandad had an even older one, which was, he had one, an Edison, what they call an Edison, which was a barrel which spun round, and you put wax records on it. You slid the records on. The wax records were cylinders, and you put your two fingers inside the record and open them up to lift them out, so that you didn't damage the wax on the outside, and just slid it on the cylinder, and then lowered the, it wasn't a needle, it was like a blade. You lowered the blade onto the wax record, and around it went.
If I only had wings.
If I only had wings. That was one of my favourites. I used to sing that time and time again, and while I was thinking about it, I was thinking about having wings on my chest as a pilot in the Air Force. I never attained it, but it was a wonderful thought during the war. Then Siegfried Line, that was a song that was sung quite a lot. We're going to hang out the washing on the Siegfried Line. Have you any dirty washing, mother dear? We're going to hang out the washing on the Siegfried Line. 'Cause the washing day is here. I was keen to get into the forces all the time throughout the war, and when the war ended in 1945, I couldn't get away from the colliery quick enough. I tried several times after that, after the war finished, but it was still, you're in reserve occupation, we can't accept you. We were still on rationing, and 1947 came along, and I got fed up with being at the colliery, and I handed my notice in. Anyway, I went home and told my mum I'd handed my notice in, because she was rather upset. Anyway, I decided to have a day at Nottingham, went to Nottingham and signed up for the RAF. Anyway, I thought they asked me what length of time I wanted to be in. I said, well, what are the options? Of course, they told me there was, I think it was a 3-year, a 7-year and a 12-year, which you could sign on for. Of course, being me, I must go the whole hog. I said, oh, I want to sign on for 12 years. And it turned out to be 8 years in the Air Force and 4 years in the Air Force Reserve, which meant that every year you had to go to one of the RAF stations and do a bit of training there for a fortnight. I found out it wasn't as nice as I thought it was. We were on the square marching and whitewashing stones around the roadways and peeling potatoes and doing all horrible jobs. We got to have buttons polished for parades, and I just didn't like it. And after about 3 weeks of that, I wrote home to Dad and said, "Dad, I don't like this." He wrote back and said, "Soldier on." Anyway, I got through square bashing. We had 16 weeks of that, which I didn't enjoy, I must admit. It was discipline, yes, fair enough, but I was already disciplined. I did what I was told, and I knew that, you know, I can understand it being there for the bad lads, but I could never understand it being there for me. Anyway, I got away from there, and I was posted then to the RF School of Photography down south. It was now near Farnborough Airfield, Farnborough. It was a little village called Heath End, and that it was in a big house. There was only a small group of us. I think it was about possibly 10 or a dozen of us, and we were trained in basic photography there, which fortunately I was already well versed in photography, because my dad had always been interested in it, and even at a very early age he taught me how to develop my own films and process them and print them and do all the work that's done in photography. So I was already versed so far in it, although I hadn't used the equipment that the RF provided, which were big stand cameras rather than small number 2 brownies, box cameras and folding cameras. This I really enjoyed. We had a grand set of chaps there to work with, and we had good instructors, which was great. And then after that we had a fortnight on aerial photography, which included learning all about the aerial cameras that were fitted into the aircraft and how to fit them in the aircraft, and how to set the timing devices for the pilots just to press the button to set the cameras off, and all that kind of thing, which we enjoyed. It was great. Anyway, so it was 5 weeks after we were married I was posted overseas to the Far East. So that wasn't a very happy time for me, really, although I must admit I enjoyed being over in the Far East, in Kuala Lumpur and in Singapore. It was a lovely time. It was unusual. Life was run at a different pace and by a different culture. It was entirely different.
If I only had wings, oh what a difference it would make to things. All day long I'd be in the sky, up on high, talking to the birdies that pass me by. How the fellows would stare to see me roaring past them through the air.